At long last, our verdant champion has finally made it to the city of Baldur's Gate, but her challenges are far from over. Fearsome foes, both old and new, are rising out of the woodworks to stop our hero from saving the world. So she'll have to use every arrow in her quiver to slay horrendous hordes, a tongue just as sharp to talk her way out of binds, and of course she'll do it all with her loyal bestial bonds. Will it be enough to save Faerun and all its inhabitants, big and small? Well, we got one way to find out. On to the video. Astrid Fletcher finally gets a moment of rest the evening before she arrives in the big city, only for her last day of wandering her beloved wilderness to get ruined by Githyanki forces attacking while our dream visitor begs for help. Thankfully, a potion of glorious vaulting is all we need to jump straight past them and into their portal, wherein we find a new group of prey wisely running away from our huntress as fast as possible. Not fast enough though, as some of them get caught up with friendly intellect devourers while we summon our bear companion. By the time we get the drop on them, our distractions have long since died, but this just means we get a surprise round to go wild. With said surprise, it doesn't take more than a few arrows for the first to go down, and with a good strength elixir fueled shove, we get the second one right after. When we arrive, in place of our visitor, we find a mind flayer in the process of getting their butt kicked. Since they're the reason we haven't been got by our tadpole, we don't have much of a choice as we settle in for our first real fight of the act. First thing we do is yeet one of our assailants closer to this hole. Unfortunately, it just won't let us use our second attack to finish the job, so we settle for a hunter's mark and an ice arrow to their prone bot instead. Our bear joins the fun a wee bit, only for the fellow we targeted to start chipping away at Astrid in turn. The others, meanwhile, all get to work on the intellect devourers, eviscerating most of them and leaving the Emperor here to do not much of anything. Back to us, and we at last managed to fit our foe into the square hole, down a speed pot, and failed to throw another into the void, but move them just enough to the point where we can't manage a second attempt. An arrow of roaring thunder fails to get the job done too. Thankfully, Flying Fist of Fury over here ain't too good at hitting us. Their buddy, however, is real good at exploding us. Either way, the fight starts getting cleaned up very fast as we shove one into the pit, and with a couple throws manage to get a second in the same turn, even healing up to ensure we don't get got. From here, it's just a matter of Astrid manhandling the last one off the cliff, and the day is officially saved. Unfortunately, our reward is getting hit by a deadly yap attack from our Mind Flayer companion trying to garner sympathy. But it essentially boils down to the fact that this fellow, named Orpheus, is the true source of our protection, and our pal here is keeping him eternally bound to save his own skin. And that certainly ain't the natural order. Since we can't do anything about that right now, Astrid's bear smacks the bully's staff out of his hands for us to steal just because we can. Then we have a final, well-deserved rest in the wilderness. Upon heading into the city, a human pup approaches us lost and alone, only to retreat away from us when we tell her chances are her mum ain't coming back. Kids these days, man. Either way, we continue on, and while trying to find a way past the security checkpoint monitored by the Steel Watch, we instead find a secret hideout right under their feet, wherein of course Wulbren Bongle tells us he wants to blow up a bunch of innocent gnomes, who are no doubt being held prisoner by the local tyrant as tools to create the very Steel Watch oppressing the people of Baldur's Gate. Astrid agrees that such unnatural creations can't be allowed to exist, but we'll find a more sensible way to deal with them. First though, we swing by the circus to see the sights, and commission a statue of ourselves to keep our animals company when we're away. As a side effect, this statue also gives Sweetstone features, essentially a permanent bless that grants a 1d4 bonus to attacks and saving throws. And while we're here, we also free a trapped displacer beast after it promises to not eat anyone. Oh, and a dinosaur too, but that one just kinda hangs out in its cage anyways. Either way, our escapades get us all the way to level 9, which gives us access to 3rd level spells, the first of which we take is Daylight, since our instincts tell us we'll be needing it sooner rather than later. We also notably have our proficiency bonus increased to +4 at this level, making us better at pretty much everything. Continuing on, a scroll of fly is all we need to get past the local security and into the coronation of Lord Enver Gortash, Bane's chosen and the fella who's been ruining the city. The tyrannical tosser represents everything we oppose, but unfortunately we can't outright refuse his offer of a truce, even if we have no intention of keeping it forever. With that out of the way, way, we head inside the city, meet Scratch's previous abusive owner, introduce her to some point-blank retribution, free the other dogs she was tormenting, and start a shopping spree by meeting with our old friend Damon. From him, we buy the Legacy of the Masters, a pair of gloves that increase our attack and damage rolls by 2, and as a little boost also bump our strength saves by 1. After that, we swing by Gloomy Fentonson to purchase the Armor of Agility, 17 AC medium armor that lets us use our full dex mod, basically making it 22 AC armor. And to make it even better, it boosts all of our saving throws by a further 2. To continue our day, we break into the local Diabolus house, find a ritual circle on the ground that we already have some ideas for, and most importantly, find the Mask of Soul Perception. This little helmet gives us a +2 to our attack rolls, initiative, and perception checks, rounding out our new boost and making it dang near impossible for us to miss. At last, before heading to bed, we go to the Stormshore Tabernacle and give enough of a donation to the Supreme Ranger that she blesses us with Anointed in Splendor, a permanent buff that gives yet another +2 to all of our saves. When we make it back to camp for the evening, we find Halsin absolutely losing it after having harmed Scratch. We're ready to put an arrow between his eyes, but hey, it turns out it's just Orin, which if anything makes us even more ready. But she's come to tell us that she's kidnapped Halsin, and if we ever want to see him again, we've got to kill old Gordy first and then duel her to the death, before disappearing in a puff of smoke. However, first things first, a long overdue makeover so that all will recognize and some will flee from the guardian of all that is green. Now that we're finally ready, we get to exploring the city and find a familiar face in the midst of getting lynched by cultists. He may not be green, but our guardian gallops into combat. A hunter's mark and a single arrow is all we need to take out the first enemy, triggering our Bloodlust elixir. A second arrow frees Volo from his bondage, and a third starts whittling away at another foe. In retaliation, they land a truly surprising amount of attacks on us in spite of our 26 AC, but it's nothing we can't handle. Our Boar companion starts raging at the sight and uses his charge to, well, back to Astrid, and she heals up, has her concentration broken, and barely fails to kill another goon. Not a great showing, made even worse when our targets continue to be unreasonable in their attacks. At least our Boar has decided to start hitting. Once again, we're obligated to heal, but this round Astrid is able to take out not one, but 2 of these ballist boneheads. From here, they are just incapable of threatening us if they ever were, and even though we continue to take the odd hit, they basically turn into a shooting gallery for our heroine to test out her new unerring accuracy. With the whole crew put to death, Volo is feeling relieved and more than happy to join us back at our camp for the final leg of our journey. Then we get exploring the city some more and find a therapist's office. Naturally, after meeting his previous owner, we decide Scratch needs this the most. Unfortunately, they won't let him sit in the seat, so Astrid is forced into it instead. After a few rather invasive questions, if you ask me, this lady says we have a violent heart. Why, I never. And she reveals herself to be a Sharan cultist by the name of Viconia de Veer, well inviting us into her basement. Well, she already thinks we're violent, so there's no harm in throwing on the Eversight ring and hunting some Sharans for old time's sake. Arrows of many targets alongside Crawler Mucus make the start of this fight a breeze, proccing Bloodlust and letting us slam down an Ice Storm Scroll too before retreating up the stairs. Unfortunately, Astrid gets the violent heart condition. Scratch ends up with battle scars instead of therapy, and a whole lot of enemies start lining up on this convenient staircase. Astrid then throws a potion to get rid of the violent heart condition and make herself immune to Viconia's legendary action, only for that to trigger it instead because it counts as attacking an enemy. Oh well, we down a potion of speed to shoot the enemies a wee bit more before skedaddling as far up the hallway as we can. Then we drop a wall of fire the turn after, roasting any who pass through it, and forcing them to walk instead of teleport to shadows by casting daylight on top of it. But we move too far away and they end up teleporting anyways. Whoops. Either way, they come out the other end nice and ripe for many target arrows, which, fun fact, if you crit with the first hit, then every single bounce is critical too. To end our turn, we once again move far away and refresh our speed potion, forcing these shoddy Sharans to waste their turns dashing once more. Rinse and repeat a little bit longer, and by the time they're all through the firewall, there's not many of them left, requiring only a few more special arrows to take out first Viconia and then the rest. Our first couple rewards for this come in the form of Viconia's walking fortress and the Handmaiden's mace. The mace is more or less just a straight upgrade to our Club of Hill Giant strength, dealing a bit more poison damage, and though it doesn't say it, it also has a chance to inflict the poisoned condition. Viconia's walking fortress, however, is a +3 AC shield that can reflect projectiles for a couple turns, has a damaging shield bash, and makes it so that all spell attacks against us have disadvantage while granting advantage on all spell saving throws. Obviously, this is insanely powerful, but we do lose our adamantine shield and therefore our crit immunity. Elsewhere in this place, we find a Mirror of Loss, which after passing a couple of checks, we're able to use it to trade off an easily fixable -2 to 1 stat to gain a permanent +2 to our dexterity. And we're close enough to level 10 that we can get there by exploring the city, granting us Hide in Plain Sight, which is so useless because it is invisibility that breaks when you do anything, including moving. Astrid also gets Bounty Hunter as well as Wasteland Wanderer Fire for a few extra abilities that might do something at some point. As one more treat before our journey continues, we make our way into a place known as the Guild Hall and talk to the barkeep who sells us Terrazul. For those not in the know, Terrazul is a huntress's best friend, basically acting as a 2-turn speed potion that stacks with speed potions and doesn't require an action or bonus action to consume. Awfully handy for a pinch. During our exploration of the city, we also found a vampire's palace. Wanting to right the natural order, our hero gets to killing our way past the front guards, making sure to just knock out the enslaved animals. Once we're inside the palace proper, we find a sinister door misappropriating the image of innocent rats. In order to open said devious door, first we need to learn how to read this dictionary we find in a dead girl's room. Then, alongside our wolf, we jump this skulking skeleton and steal his fancy ring off his now unmoving corpse. With both these things in hand, we're able to pop open the entryway and, this one might be a little tricky. Not because the monster closet here is particularly difficult, in fact they can't even really hit us. It's just gonna take eons for us to knock the mind-controlled animals unconscious one by one. Still though, 1 eon later and Astrid gets the job done. After all that, we descend to the depths of this place, down a necrotic resistance elixir, make sure our daylight is active, cast protection from evil and good, put on our boots of striding and drink a flying potion, and then wade into the fight. Attempt 1 doesn't go great as we get got by an unfortunate glitch, but attempt 2 kicks off with a blight to the face by the head honcho Cazador, and we're hitting the races. First things first, we down a speed potion and head all the way over here to slaughter some random spawn fueling the big vampire's ritual named Astarion, then we stuff him in our bag. Not for no reason, mind you, that's so he doesn't get resurrected. Either way, we zoom all the way back to the entrance to kite our foes and start trading blows with our vampiric antagonist. While he does hit hard, it's not enough to scare us. All we do on our turns is launch a few undead slaying arrows and top up our HP to make sure no accidents happen. To make this fight even easier, our daylight ticks down his health, and for some reason he decides that missing us with melee attacks is better than dealing guaranteed damage with lightning. All the while, most of the goons are stuck chasing our spider companion around the arena. A couple turns more of this, and taking a quick break to launch his caster goon into the void is all we need to obliterate Cazador easy peasy. Of course, we still need to safely knock out all the animals. Once the area is clear, we set things right with a good old stake to the heart, tuck in the old fellow, and call it a day. Freeing all those poor rats and bats is enough to hit level 11, giving us another 3rd level spell in the form of Conjure Barrage, a way to somewhat reliably do AoE damage. But more importantly, we get Bestial Fury, granting all of our animals an extra attack alongside improved stats, new abilities, and some fun new fits that you'll see soon enough. We even use one such ability to have our bear summon yet another bear. Continuing on, we find a group of fellow adventurers who have apparently been set upon by a hag, even having one of their members hexed. Hags have been a thorn in our side before, and as we remove the curse on this sheep only to find a Mayrina, it becomes apparent that Ethel is back in town. A buttload of crabs do show up to try and slow us down, but these animals are thankfully magically conjured, so we have no comms with slaughtering them, just a little bit. As it turns out, Ethel is already up to her nonsense, having kidnapped an innocent child. Thankfully, Mayrina has what we need to free the kid, so off we go to stop another problematic parable in the making. It takes a while, but eventually we track her down, summoning our raven who summons yet more ravens. Then we head inside and get ready to show her what for. Just like last time, she summons all of her clones to surround us, but unlike last time, we need to destroy these mushrooms before we can kill her for real. Thankfully, a cloud giant elixir sets our strength to 27 to help, and there's there's haste spores just laying on the ground too. After Astrid fires, her raven flies next to her, using its new upgrade to create a darkness cloud in the process. Anything inside of these clouds becomes untargetable by Ethel, meaning she just shoots at the fodder ravens that we left outside. So all we need to do is make sure we end our turn in darkness while we pop down the 2 remaining mushrooms, followed by us throwing the Hag's Bane Mayrina gave us to force her to vomit out the child the child she was holding in her stomach. 2 arrows and a couple solid pecks from our old pal the Raven is all we need to finish off that hideous hag, only for the child to not even give us so much as a thanks. At this point, we also decide it's for the best if we throw on Rhapsody, a dagger that we looted from Cazador that increases our attack rolls, damage, and spell save DC by 1 whenever we kill an enemy with it equipped, up to a max of 3. Now at last, it's time for us to focus on taking down Gortash. Halsin's probably getting bored of waiting after all. Our first step in taking down the tyrant is disassembling the Steelwatch Foundry. The moment we get inside, we see the Gondians being forced to make his infernal machines, but manage to regardless isolate and talk to a certain Xander Tubin who tells us their families are being held hostage somewhere in the city and only after they're free can his people revolt. So we get searching the city, sneak into an abandoned warehouse, knock out some guard dogs, and commandeer a secret submarine leading to an even more secret underwater prison called the Iron Throne. Gortash starts blowing the whole place sky high, or ocean deep I guess, so we don't have a lot of time to free all the prisoners here. But with a speed and flying potion alongside a whole lot of pre-dashing before combat started, we're able to fly faster than our arrows and free pretty much every prisoner on turn 1, with our bird freeing those that we couldn't. Most of them even managed to make it to safety over the next couple turns, in spite of the fishman guards who decided they also want to get blown up while slaughtering civilians, although some do admittedly get sent to a watery grave. Once everyone is safe and sound, Admiral Astrid navigates the Gondians back to the surface. Now it's time to clean up the city well and true, ridding what once was green of this horrible steel factory. Unfortunately, the weak workers can't take care of themselves, which means we've got to kill their oppressors as fast as possible, using many target arrows alongside our Wolf's Lupine Slash, which is basically an AoE force damage attack. To make matters worse, a Gondian kills a guard with a Deadman switch set to blow them all up, while the other guards just get to murking them the old-fashioned way, besides one who also drops a motivator set to blow them up. Thankfully, our speedy Miss Fletcher is able to deal good damage to the guards and disarm not just one but both of the detonators. Regardless, it's not enough to save all the Gondians, still at least only one of them perishes before we finish the fight. Afterwards, we need to clear out the basement, which is in a very similar situation as upstairs, which means we handle it similarly as well, with lupine slashes, many target arrows, and bloodlust elixirs. Big difference is, there's also Hellfire Watchers here, but they're just scrap metal so long as they don't hit. We do have to use a haste scroll at one point in order to disarm a motivator, but from there it's smooth sailing, as even without a Cloud Giant elixir, our damage output is completely wild. Some of the Gondians even manage to survive to the end. That's just how quickly we're able to deal with the threats. Before the final fight of this area, Astrid equips the Nair Misser for some force damage and downs a Colossus elixir, since we can smell the piercing resistant armor coming from the next room. Sure enough, we enter the next room and the Hellfire Steel Watcher Titan comes out to say hello. Turn 1, we Hunter's Mark one of the smaller bots, and yeah, that's about it. In return, they scorch our bears alive, melting one of them, but leaving the other intact enough to disarm the Titan, and one of the little guys to boot. Back to Astrid, and some custom order flash blinders from the Iron Hands are enough to stun 3 of our 4 foes, buying enough time to disarm a third with our bear. Rinse and repeat for a couple more rounds, and at last our bear manages to get the 4th and final weapon, forcing our foes to use their much deadlier Hellfire Exhaust instead. Wait, maybe we should give them their weapons back? Well, with a few bolts, one of them blows up pretty fast, and if it's only 2 of them to worry about, we're able to heal up nicely enough. Shot by shot, we are slowly but surely tickling them down until we finally get a second, and shortly thereafter a third too, leaving just the Titan by itself, which really can't do much by its lonesome without its weapon, so it just kinda stands there and takes it as our eagle-eyed archer whittles it low enough to the point it decides to speed things up and explode itself to kingdom come. Since the coast is clear, we plant a rune powder bomb and watch as our fleet-footed Fletcher gets to safety, just in time time to watch the fireworks. Wulbren frickin' Bongle does show up to rain on our parade in his usual fashion, but Barkus at last has had enough and kicks Mr. Bongle to the curb once and for all. As further reward, we get our final level up too, granting us our final feat in the form of Tough, increasing our HP by 2 per level, meaning we have 24 more max HP than usual. With the Steel Watch disabled and Gortash vulnerable, it's time to get killing our way past all of his guards in his not-so-tough fortress, something we're well used to by now. When we reach the top, our showdown kicks off as Gordy launches a dazzling beam at both us and our bears. On Astrid's turn, she throws a bomb at one of his defensive constructs, casts a wee hunter's mark, and starts pestering the goons, who for their efforts do their best to do anything at all to our nigh unkillable warrior. Likewise, our bears aren't doing too much either, past their darndest. And they instantly die when a grenade launches and explodes with no delay. Well, they tried. Thankfully, Gortash's remaining defensive construct malfunctions and actually gives him vulnerabilities instead, making us do pretty good damage. Then something unexpected happens. We get hit by a command halt, so we can't do much but watch as we get hit by another command halt, and then another one after that. All the while, we're forced to watch as they wail on us turn after turn, but we're just so darn tanky that by the time we make it out of this loop, we still have a solid third of our hit points remaining, only to heal most of our missing stuff back up with a single potion, proving that these loser lackeys are really just rats that think they've cornered a mammoth. Once they're out of the way, we focus on the big boss again, only for him to transform into the Avatar of Tyranny, which makes him frightening only because he summons a giant hand whenever we hit him that deals 20 to 200 damage after a couple turns. But we've got remove curse scrolls which solve that problem for us easy peasy. From here, it's a matter of luring him to the edge, making him break it down for the whole city to see, and then using a thunder arrow to slam his body into the beach 100 feet below. Of course, now we have to climb down and loot his netherstone, but hey, it was worth it. Later that day, back at camp, we find a note from Orin congratulating us on a job well done, and telling us to head to a place called the Murder Tribunal. Upon arriving there, we learn we can have our bear summon a bear and then summon something else anyways. We also precast Blur on ourselves just in case. To no one's surprise, inside we find Saravok Anchev, another ball spawn who ruined the city ages ago, and now he wants us to become an unholy assassin for his old man. Yeah, that one is not happening. Saravok here has the fun legendary action to guaranteed stab someone who attacks him first. This is completely unavoidable, but his regular attacks are almost incapable of landing a blow on us. He does have goons running about too, but they don't actually deal damage to us so long as Papa Anchev is still alive, letting us kite him around relatively unbothered until eventually he goes down for the count. After that, it only takes a couple arrows on each of his goons to clean up the fight. From the bumbling ball spawn's corpse, we get an amulet that we need to enter Orin's temple, and before you know it, we've tracked our prey down and are precasting Blur while coating our weapon in drow poison. Unfortunately for our nature-defending co-worker, we're not quite able to convince Balls Chosen to spare Halcyon, and just like that, another fight with another god-blessed creature kicks off. To begin, we launch a mini target's arrow, managing to put Orin to sleep, but not really dealing any damage thanks to her 12 unstoppable stacks. Then we finish off one of the goons with an ice arrow, however, another gets us with a stunning gaze in return. Our boar is also here, and at the end of each round, the ritual being sustained by most of the folks in this arena refreshes the boss lady's unstoppable back to 12. Next round, when she's awake, it also applies Ball's Edict to Astrid, meaning she has to kill something this round, otherwise we die. A thunder arrow gets this done for us, completely ignoring one of the ritual chanter's sanctuary that makes it untargetable, followed up with another many targets arrow to try and weaken the remaining crowd, as well as a hunter's mark on Orin herself. Since she's back up in Adam, she spends her turn leaping all the way up to us, leaving her open to an attack from our boar. Well, since that was her legendary action, we don't have to worry about Ball's Edict this round. Although it doesn't stop us from killing the remaining of the ritual folks so that we never have to worry about it again. Even though we killed those goons, Orin decides to summon more, so we kill those ones again, and then she summons yet more to join the fight. Naturally, we kill those ones again with a couple arrows, all the while whittling down the unstoppable stacks, but things start to change when we get infected by contagion. Astrid does at least manage to finish off the unstoppable stacks before things get really bad, but bad they get. As our contagion worsens, Orin summons even more skeletons. We learn learn that Conjure Barrage really is just worse than 2 arrows of many targets, and then the contagion becomes Flesh Rot, giving vulnerability to all damage. Seeing things are getting a little dire, we take out most of the summons again, and drop a Globe of Invulnerability scroll thanks to a speed pot, forcing Orin to do a whole lot of nothing to us. Next round, we do our best to blast her off the cliff after healing up, but the stubborn stabber refuses to go anywhere. Instead, the round after, we just drop the globe, use a hunter's mark, and with 3 measly arrows finally prove who the superior huntress is. At last, we have all 3 netherstones and are ready to take out the netherbrain. But first, there's one last poacher that needs to be hunted in this concrete jungle. Well, at least the portal to his domain can be opened in this concrete jungle. Either way, Raphael, here we come. As soon as we head inside, we find ourselves in the House of Hope, being greeted by Hope, who has none of her namesake left for herself. That is, until we tell her we'll save her and defeat Raphael, at which point she gives us a disguise to roam the house without worry and tells us a certain Orphic hammer can free her. Unfortunately, when we get to the archives where it's held, it's under magical lock and key. That doesn't stop us from looting everything else though. With the alarm raised, however, when we head into the hallways, we're greeted by some spherical sentries sent to stop us. But the hoary hosts of hell are little more than a road bump at this point, as we barrage them into non-existence while making our way to the boudoir. Once outside it, we find a multitude of one-shottable imps hanging out with a Cambion who looks suspiciously like Raphael, but wearing much more, scant clothing. And wouldn't you know it, on his corpse we find a key to Raphael's safe, wherein we find the password needed for the Orphic hammer. Also, Astrid ain't one for the comforts of civilization, but a bath in the boudoir that gives all the benefits of a long rest certainly doesn't go amiss. After finishing cleaning out the halls of the house, we swing back and the hammer is ours for the taking. Of course, we still need to free Hope herself, which means dealing with her jailers, a pair of deadly spectators. And when I say deadly, I mean they deal a fraction of our health each time they hit. Our bow, meanwhile, deals a solid quarter of their HP. There's no need to pretend like we're genuinely frightened of these foes, but we do occasionally have to heal up since their damage is largely unavoidable. Still, our arrows inevitably and unerringly find their mark, only making us tank for a few rounds of combat. Upon defeating the jailers, we're free to free Hope from her long suffering, using our newly acquired hammer. Next up, we get ready to face down Raphael by casting Protection from Evil and Good, feeding our bear a heroism elixir, throwing on the old Nair Misser and Hellfire hand crossbow to help destroy his furniture, and feeding Hope an invis potion. Then we head to the exit and get interrupted by the man of the hour, as well as this lady who Astrid really doesn't like, and the Displacer Diddler himself back from the grave. Just like that, our most anticipated hunt yet begins. Starting us off is the still invisible Hope banishing Yrgir once and for all. Next, Astrid fires a smoke powder arrow at a soul pillar that's buffing Raphael, only to realize that a regular bolt does more damage, and we drink a speed potion to rectify the mistake. One baddie decides to melt our Raven familiar on its turn, leaving Hope open to banish one more goon, before going back invisible. As a little prank, our bear uses its honeyed paws to knock Rafi prone, but he takes his revenge on the rest of our summons. Only our big bear barely survives this round. The second round has us using another 3 attacks to take out another soul pillar, drinking a flying potion, and snorting some Terrazul to get us working on pillar number 3. Then we zoom far, far away. This does leave our bestial bond to get murked, but it forces our enemies to waste their turns trying to reach us. Back to us, and we have more than enough move speed to fly back in, take out the 2 remaining pillars, essentially neutralizing Raphael in the process, and fly as far away as we can before misty stepping even further, making it so that only half of our enemies get to lay into us while we sleep off the effects of both Terrazul and the speed potion. As you can see, they can't really hit us at all, so after switching back to our Titan string bow, we have the ability to just kite them around the house, picking off the Cambions one by one while Raphael watches in horror. When he does eventually catch up, he's only able to do about 50% of our max HP as damage using his strongest spells, which we can easily tank so long as we heal up. Soon enough, he runs out of juice and resorts to melee attacking us, which is even more heartwarming to watch. Yes, indeed, there's nothing quite like cornered prey, especially when they once thought themselves to be the hunter. Hasta la vista, Raphael. Unfortunately, like all too many animals, animals, even after being freed, Hope is not quite ready to leave her cage, so we head to our final fight as always with just our trusty animals. Our talented tracker manages to stalk her final foe down to the sewers when, oh wow, that got a lot bigger since the last time we saw it, and it pulled us into its psyche. And the nether stones we gathered do literally nothing to it. And thankfully, right before it mind blasts us into oblivion, the Emperor does one last helpful thing and whisks us back to the astral prism just in the nick of time. This does mean that we let the brain destroy the vast majority of the city in seconds, but hey, I'm sure the forest will grow over it when we're done. While it's doing that, the Emperor gives us the 411 on what just happened. Apparently, we need to be an illithid to be able to use the stones properly. We tell him that sure as hell ain't happening, and in fact, now that we have the hammer, we're gonna free Orpheus, causing him to dip and join his arch nemesis instead. Once the O-Man is free, he is none too pleased to see us, but he does ultimately take the plunge for the team and become an illithid himself so that he can use the nether stones. Now at last, it's time to put all we've learned to the test and save the city of Baldur's Gate. First, however, we need to kill our way past the small battalion around the base of the brain, which is surprisingly easy when you have a buddy who can make black holes inside of people's skulls, can apparate even more allies out of thin air, and are nigh unkillable yourself. For what it's worth, they do summon a nautiloid ship to stop our ascent, but I guess they just kind of forgot that Orpheus can now levitate us straight to where we need to be. On the precipice of our final fight, we summon as many of our family as we can manage. Birds, bears, rats, little brain cats, you name it, and then we get a climbing. And look who should show up at the top but the Emperor, a now ill-fitting name for just another illithid puppet. Regardless, we can't let him distract us as our last hunt begins. Orpheus is up first as he downs a heroism elixir and dimension doors the two of us right next to where we can use the stones. Then Astrid uses a Featherfall scroll to bait out counterspells from anyone capable of it, allowing our illithid pal to take Terrazul to channel the stones safely inside of a globe of invulnerability also conjured by our hero. Unfortunately, he gets stunned, stopping him in his tracks, and then the round after that, we need to wait for the Terrazul jitters to go away, and then we get stunned ourselves. But eventually, we have both a working globe and a working channel, forcing the enemies to do little but watch as a portal back into the brain's psyche is opened up. The cruel cranium is cornered with nowhere to go, meaning we can just juice up with fierce perilous stakes over and over for as many turns as we'd like, each one granting an additional 15 psychic damage to our attacks. And when we're ready, with a couple of arrows of aberration slaying, the guardian of all that is green may finally rest knowing her job is done. All we need to do is command the brain to destroy its army alongside itself, and at last, the forests are saved. Well, for the most part. Here's hoping we're just back to hunting regular poachers after this. Wowee, thanks for watching, and sorry this one took so long in coming. We should be back to fairly regular uploads from here on out, but either way, this run was a blast, even if I was sick for most of it. And as always, a special thanks to our Storyteller tier members, Bunny Warren, Ocan, Damon, Mark Rainbow, Vivian, Rat King, Rune, Lumina, Beltfed Joe, Chance Hine, El Guardia, Clug Vader, Ramon Standalone, Witch Amy, and Jessie Kate.